Computer. All right, welcome back, everybody. Welcome back to the MKO show. And I am Earl Mann. I'm going to be your host today. And I am super excited for the guest I have today, Joe Dyer. Welcome to the MKO show.
Hey, great to be here, Earl. I know we have talked about this for a long time, and I'm so happy that we're making it come to fruition here, and that we do have this casual conversation here to talk about I think some pretty interesting things, at least from my
I,
perspective,
I would
anyway.
agree. So let me tell people, let me tell the viewing audience why I wanted to interview you. This is not going to be a broadcast specifically about things related to health, but I do think it's going to be around things that most people that are interested in health are interested in. And that's creating a highly functional, highly production driven lifestyle, which you epitomized to me. So I thought the audience might gain from some of your insights. So let me tell the audience, let me give an example of what I mean so the audience understands. So there was one, so you by far, Joe, you by far stand alone in a group of people that demonstrates the ability to do multiple significant things simultaneously. Any one of those significant things would be a whole absorbing task for most people I knew. Even me, I'm super busy. But when I looked at some of the things you've done concurrently, even it makes me feel like I'm lazy, man. Quite honestly, it makes me feel like I'm not even really after it. Just to give a quick example, I remember there was one time, Joe, where you were at the same time you were studying to get another cybersecurity IT related certification to go with your long list of certifications. You were a senior executive in, I believe it was $1 billion tech corporation. You were finishing your own basement. You were building your own deck. You were managing a fashion show event, and you were fostering a foster child all at the same time. And I probably forgot some of the things you were doing at that same time. But that list is unbelievable. You remember that time? That was 20 years ago.
Yeah,
But
Earl, it's
20 years
definitely
ago,
been.
but you've been that's how you have been for the entire 20 years. That you substitute different things, but you always have about that many things and about that many things of extreme significance. So let's do this before we start the conversation. Give people just a little snapshot of where you are now, kind of like career wise, so they just understand this, or anything you want to tell about you or your background or where you come from, so people just understand where your perspective comes from, and then we'll get into some of the questions, some of the interview.
Sure, Earl. And you're very modest too. I need to stand back here, and I know you talk about the things that I've done, but I've saw some pretty powerful things in multitasking. Well, we're gonna dissect that word multitasking today as well.
Good.
I don't believe that people multitask, but we'll talk about that. But the things that you were able to accomplish, and one I've always been admired by you as well. And what you're able to really dive into to start to completion. So I'm sure we're going to probably squeeze a little bit that in, but a little bit about myself in the background. I really consider myself a continuous learning creative technologist where analytics and creativity meet. So let me explain what I mean by that. I've been in technology now. This is my 40th year in technology, continuously through. So, I started back off 40 years ago on mainframes, job control language, punch cards, and so forth. So, yes, I'm a dinosaur that's being reinvented or keep being reinvented. And along that path, I found my way through all the areas of technology, but for the last 25 years has really been in cyber. So today, I manage a worldwide cybersecurity program for a multi-billion-dollar company, and pretty much every day, keeping the hackers out and doing the things that a CISO would do for a large company. In addition to that, and through that path, because it might in the technology field, in the business field, it's really analytics and business that you deal with. But Earl, as you already know, I'm extremely creative as well. for the
There,
things that I've done. You know, I can't sing. I can demonstrate that to you, but I'm going to hold your ears of everybody. You know, I can't, oh, I can dance. I mean, I can get down on the dance floor, but it would not be qualified as, you know, what you would consider professional dance. You know, I can draw. So if I try to draw a stick man, you know, my grandkids would, you know, probably do a better job at that. So I had to figure out a way that I could release my creativity. And through that creativity, as you stated before, it wasn't the ideals of fashion, but more, uh, I guess, appropriately as far as what I've actually really installed myself in. And that is, you know, I made a mistake, you know, almost 25 years ago and picked up a camera and realized that, you know, through the lens of that camera, I can express my creativity and be able to take something from the beginning and be able to create something with an end, you know, objective in mind. And that flowed right along with, you know, my ideals around how I manage time and how I'm able to take technology and then take, you know, creativity and merge that together. And then within that process as well, I picked up a hammer, you know, and a saw and realized that, oh, I enjoy doing that as well. So it really gives an opportunity for me as an individual to, you know, do the things that I love, technology, and then have an outlet through video, which, you know, as you know, I own a video production company as well, Motion Pixels Media, but also to be able to build, which in turn takes a lot of strategic thinking, but also the ideas around the creativity side. So that's what I've been doing, Earl, for the last 40 years, is really engaging myself in the technology and creative field.
you are an extremely busy man, and I can't believe you've been at tech for 40 years. I can't believe I've known you now for more than 20. Time flies, man.
Yeah, it's
Now, I
2027 to be
want to,
precise. Yeah.
I want to, before we get off of this, I want to tell the story of how we met. But I'd rather first start with, now that people understand what I mean by how you can juggle all of these things at once. I would love to try to peel the onion a little bit and just to understand your philosophy. I think philosophy kind of drives us. That's kind of like our operating system, right? So, how do you view the world? Like, what are some of the just what are some of your personal rules you live by, or your personal values? I mean, what is it about you? Because we all have 24 hours in a day, right? But you get way more out of your day than most people I know. So, what would you credit to being some of the reason why you are so successful at that? The ability to do multiple things like you do.
Yeah. So Earl, well, first of all, let me put a disclaimer in here if you don't mind, right? So, you know, what I'm about to discuss is not a result of any type of scientific studies or any great work of any renowned, you know, philosopher. It's just self-learned strategies that I've used over time for me to be able to manage a very multifaceted life. So if you're looking for like an Aristotle type of conversation here, this probably is not for you. But however, if you're looking for some really cool, you know, average Joe stuff, then it may be fun. So you know, I don't consider myself a multitasker or master at multitasking. What I do is consider myself a good conductor of my personal life. And I think if we take a look at the strategies around what that really means, is the capability to be able to take a large, you know, end state or vision or focus and be able to break that down into incremental steps to be able to have enough focus to be able to get to the end. So once I understand what the vision actually looks like, I'm able to sit that aside and be able to start to build those components to be able to get there. And I think so many times, you know, individuals look at all of these things we have to do, and they get confused or distracted in that effort. So what I really do is look at it in macro and micro steps of day to day. Now we can talk about the, you know, the timelines and how we get there and how fast we have to get there, because priorities and the capability to be able to be flexible and shift is another component of that as well. And that is to be able to understand the steps you have to go through, the task you must do, and then the capability to be able to be flexible and shift along the way, but then be able to, you know, look at that map and be able to find your way back to the main road to proceed forward. So from a principal perspective, I think it's just the idea of not getting over distracted. And we'll talk about that maybe a little bit as well, to be able to focus on the macro and not the micro ideals as far as what you want to get accomplished.
How do you determine what's worthy of getting on your list? How do you how do you determine, you know what, I need to make time to add this to my already busy day? Because I can't imagine you ever having one of your days that isn't completely full before you even add the next thing into it. So
Right.
how do you go through that process, that decision making?
Okay. So why don't we maybe take a step back and maybe how I look at the ideas around what most people would consider multitasking, right?
Okay.
But we know that to me, from the human brain, multitasking is really not a thing, right?
Right.
Because our brain is not designed to simultaneously process outwardly more than one thing at a time. Let me give you an example, Earl, if you don't mind. I'll play a little game.
Absolutely.
Now
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm gonna go back to what Earl Mann is extremely good after because good at doing because I hear him and talk about this all the time. And Earl's probably one of the most great philosophers and individuals who could
Uh,
take stories and put them together and moving towards life. And I have to tell you about that challenge at some particular point that he put me through for 115 days. But however,
yes.
he was one of the ones who drove towards that challenge to get me there. But if you think about it, Earl, our brain can really only process kind of one thing at a time. And I'm not talking about the physical things. I'm not talking
Right.
about the capability to be able to chew gum and walk at the same time, or
Right.
to be able to tap dance and hold a glass of water without spilling. Those are
Right.
all physical things. Those are muscle memories, right? Those are things we do. But I'll challenge you. Say your APCs and count to 20 at the exact same time.
Can't do it.
Can't do it,
Right.
right? Cognitively, our brains would not allow us to do that.
Right.
So if we take that basic principle and if we apply it towards the areas around focus and being able to focus on those things and get them done and move forward, I think that's the real secret and the magic on how we get things. So really what it is that I don't like to use the ideas around multitask because I already proved that we can't really
Right.
do this. Our brains subconsciously probably can do multiple things kind of moving around at one time, just like a computer. But
Right.
us outwardly, it's
Right.
difficult or near possible for us to do that. So I look at things like, around time management. So if we take a look at the principles that I look at that really helps me drive that, it would, I use these basic things here. Perfection can be the enemy of progress, right? So again, I think sometimes we look for the perfect key of everything that's just not there. So I use that as a basic principle as we move forward. Procrastination leads to more procrastination, right? So that's something else I try to cut out when you talk about those things as far as at least, from the selection process. And then we talk about, I don't spend time, I invest it. So I think that comes back to the question that you just asked me, and that how
Mm.
do I set those priorities? This is going to be different for every single person. And we really need to understand what is the objectives and what is it that we want to get out of life or what is we want to get done. So what I have to do first, if you don't mind, and this may go
This is
into
great.
another 5 or 6 minutes,
No, let's just go.
but
Go,
but I
go.
really want to get to a couple of points here because I think this is going to emphasize um, how I think about these things that I do. And you mentioned this area, this earlier in the introduction, is that I use this thing called the 24-hour clock. You mentioned as well, right? We all have that exact same time. If you figure out how we can change that, let me know because I would love to be able to go to that planet as well to get that time back. But for us, it's just not possible. But however, there is 3 pillars in that clock. So there are mandatory things, right, in that 24 hours. Those mandatory things would be things I have to eat, right? We would not
Right.
survive if we didn't do that. I have to get some level of sleep, right? That's different for different people. I can survive easily, and don't tell my doctor this because he would probably yell, but 5 or 6 hours of sleep, I am good, right? At least this stage in my life and earlier. That may change as I get older. Again, as I said, don't tell my doctor that because he would probably have a conversation with me, right? But again, 6 hours of sleep max, I'm okay. And then we have the family and social involvement, right? You talked about the mental health components of what you typically talk about, right? I think those components, whether it's spending time with your friends, doing meetups, church, family time, whatever that is, I call that the mandatory time. You have to spend time in that mentally, right? Socially. That's going to allow us to be a lot more productive. The second step of that is you have obligations, right? These are the things like a job, right? If I have a job, I have to perform at that job. So that's going to take up X amount of blocks out of that 24 hours. And then there's other obligation things like the kids, right? If you have kids or you have to spend time of things you just have to do. And the list can go on. So put those two blocks of time together. It's a finite time. This is how much time that I have to spend, whether it's 8 hours with my job, I got family time, I got to eat, and you put all together, and then now you have a lesser time frame in that 24 hours. So you only have what you have. Now, it may be flexible a little bit. Maybe traffic backs up, and it takes me an extra half hour to pick up my kid. So that's not a finite, it's not a perfect number, but you get the idea, right? Life isn't perfect and it will always adjust. And then you have those things called flexibility. These are things like, vacation, hobbies, a side business, right? Or another full-time business, right? These things that we can be flexible in to be able to adjust our schedule a little bit. So what I do when I'm trying to figure out what's the next thing, I can't look at the block of time in the first two pillars. I have to look at that block of time in that last pillars. So what am I planning on giving up in order to fit that in? So it could be, well, less TV time, right? It could be, well, what I enjoy doing and maybe going out to get something to eat. Maybe I can't go out and get something to eat. Maybe I have to fix something and so forth to be able to squeeze that in. So it's all relative, really, to the individual. And it's also that quality of life versus quantity of life, right? And that balanced approach on how we would actually get there. So, and me choosing, what I'm going to put in and how I'm going to shift, I always go to those bottom areas of that time category, because the other areas that I talked about, Earl, either I can't sacrifice those areas or I'm not willing to sacrifice in those areas. So if it's something that comes up, remember we talked about an investment in time?
Yeah.
If that investment is time is going to give me the rewards of what the outcome is going to be, then I'm going to look down and say, what's lesser to me? And then there's some impacts on that as well. I started something maybe I can't complete. How important is it, right? Can that wait another month or 2 months or another year? So again, this whole gradual shifting of priorities as you move forward. And that doesn't mean you failed, right? You don't fail until you give up, right? So as long as it's within the time frame, there's not a critical path that you have to get it done. There's always opportunity for flexibility. So my decision falls within that last pillar of opportunity as far as to be able to shift.
No, that was really good. And I'm actually taking notes. So I do have a question. So, and I'm trying to guess what might be some of the questions that people that are just finding this broadcast and they're, serendipitously kind of what they might want to know. And one of the things that comes to my mind is, how clear are you on how to do the things that you engage in doing? Because a lot of people have some ideas of things they want to do, like you mentioned, side projects or hustles or businesses or changing career paths and all these things. And what I know comes along with all of those is an extreme amount of uncertainty, right? So can you talk just a little bit about, I don't even know if do you perceive uncertainty? Do you feel any doubt or unclarity, or do you just look at a thing and just know clearly how this will work? I mean, what's your perspective on that?
Yeah. So Earl, AI does not run me yet. Right. So I think if we're any human, you're going to always have uncertainty. You're going to have the unknowns. You're going to have to make decisions that you're not going to be sure that you made the right decision. So all of those things, that's life. And that's a great thing about life, right? We have choice. And we go through those things, and many of those things makes us stronger. But I tell you, and thinking about that, Earl, it's one quote that comes to mind. And if I bash this quote, I do apologize for the individual, because I think the individual who actually said this was a great person. But this person said, give me 6 hours to chop down a tree, and I'll spend the first 4 sharpening the axe.
I got it.
Abraham Lincoln, right? Yeah. So what I do is going through the ideas around, what am I going to choose to do next? I just don't jump in. I try to spend a little time in the front of that to understand, well, what is the expected outcome? What is my return on investment of that time? Is it something that's where I'm gonna get gains from? And everything doesn't have to be financial gains, right? That's not what I'm talking about here. Right. I'm talking about, do I sacrifice a friendship by doing it, right? Am I going to take away from something that's going to be more important that I really think it will bring a continual investment for maybe financially, right? Or it could impact my business and set the business back, you know, a year. Or, is it going to impact something which is a priority, for an example, a job, right? Because we can't sacrifice that in many cases. We're getting paid to do a job. And again, if it's going to interfere or conflict with that, we have to make decisions around that. So it's not a specific, one sentence answer. I think it's really taking our individual concepts of what we can consider important in life and being able to understand it enough to get comfortable with the decision that we actually made. Now, once you make that decision, because you spent, again, 4 hours sharpening a knife, cut the tree down. Don't hesitate. Don't go into it halfway. You have to push into it with all of you have, as if you're going to take it on as a full project per se. Again,
Nice.
there's things that could shift, but at the same time, that's the attitude that I think that you have to go into to each one of these.
This is great. I want to pick your brain a little bit on your philosophy and leadership. I know you manage a large group of people, but if you could just super summarize, like, what are some of the qualities you look for most in a person? And I don't mean technical skills. I know you're in technology, but I'm talking about just on the human characteristic side of things. Are there any things that you particularly look for in people? Because I know you manage extraordinarily large teams of very, very smart, sophisticated people, probably cast all around the world. So, I mean, what are some of the things you look for as a leader?
Yeah, Earl, I think the first thing that we look for, let's take the leadership qualities out, right? Let's just break it down to the average person, right? Who doesn't degrade them in any way, because there's great people who's not leaders per se, right? There's great people who help leaders become leaders. So I don't want to degrade when I say break it down to the fundamentals. But I think if I look at the basics of that, the first thing that stands out first is integrity, right? That this person shown the capability to be able to commit and follow through, right? So I think that's one of the areas that I look at. The other one would be his capability to be able to finish, a specific task or finish that commitment. So I think commitment is the next level of that, and then being able to drive through to that. I think the next thing behind that, and I know I'm going through kind of the basic 101 things, but with honesty, I think, and I'm not just talking about, again, honesty to other people, being honest to ourselves. I am not perfect, and when I'm talking to someone, if it comes through that I've never made a mistake in my entire life. The best things is sliced bread and peanut butter, and I just don't make mistakes, right? At that particular point, I start to question the individual's capability to be able to learn, capability to be able to grow, and the realism of self-awareness, right? So I think self-awareness would be the other category that I'll put at, and then the capability to be able to work on multiple things. Again, not simultaneously, but not multitasking, right? To be able to take on a specific task and to be able to have the capability and the wherewithal to make those shifts and changes and communicate those things back in a way that would be understood by all calibers of individuals and so forth as you move forward.
That's interesting. You look for a little of yourself actually in other people. I think that's good advice for people to. I think that's good advice. I mean, people should research the people in terms of a career. People should definitely try to research the people they're trying to work for, with, or partner with, so you understand what drives them. So I got 3 big takeaways. I got more than 3, but I got 3 big takeaways that I think are easy to remember. One is to look at time as something you invest, not something you spend. Yeah. That's super valuable. 2 is to know what the non-negotiables are. What are the things in your day that are rock solid? Those are not variables. You need to work in the balance of what's left behind that. And then the other one, which everybody overlooks, I'm so glad you brought it up, because everybody overlooks it. It's what are you willing to give up to add whatever this thing is to the mix? I think those are 3 good takeaways to me. I completely agree with. And although you said you don't consider yourself a philosopher, You are backed by science. So if anybody wants to see or hear or learn about some of the science that is behind some of the ideas that he shared, I don't even know if you've read this book. It's a book called The Power of Full Engagement. I believe that's the name of the book, but they talk specifically about how science backs up what you innately know, Joe, which is we do not multitask.
Yes.
And they go really deep into that, the powerful engagement. So this has been really good. You know, one thing you've done, you reminded me at the beginning of this, so I'm gonna put it out there because you've done something that I've not even done, and I've done more than, I don't know, maybe 30 personal challenges related to fitness and personal change and all that stuff, right? That's just something I do annually, some multiple times a year. But I've never done 100 solid days of working out with no break at all. You did that, sir.
That was your fault.
Yeah,
100% your fault.
I did that, so that's something I've never done. And I thought that was a pretty amazing feat. How many days did you go in a row? Consecutive workouts with no breaks?
116. My objective
100?
was to do 90. But I ended up going to 116 days.
Overachieving, man. That's pretty crazy. So here's what I want to end this with because I often talk about you never know what you're starting when you start, right?
Mhm.
And what I mean by that is whenever you really commit to starting anything that's of meaning to you, you're starting a whole bunch of other things simultaneously that are completely outside of your awareness at the moment. And I think how I met you is a good demonstration of that. So here's how I met this greater than average Joe, right? So one day we were neighbors, but we didn't know each other. We lived in the same community, but we had not met yet. But I was all excited about a side hustle, and I think the side hustle was personal growth and development. It was a personal growth and development channel that was coming out, and they were looking for people that wanted to help market it, that whole thing. And I went home one day, went to the mailbox, and there was a little flyer in my mailbox from a lady that was trying to get a job cleaning houses. And something about that flyer bothered me. And here's what bothered me. I'm like, man, I'm thinking about this side hustle thing and doing all this thing. And here's a woman who's so motivated about getting her business out there that she went to every single mailbox to make people aware that I'm in this business. I'm looking for business. Can you help? And you know what I did in that moment? I sat there, I went straight, I looked at that flyer, went straight to my computer, made a little flyer about this new thing with the personal growth and development channel, a satellite channel. And I went to Staples or Best Buy, whatever it was, made a bunch of copies, came back home and put one in every single mailbox. And it's because I did that, because I was bothered by the motivation of that person who I've never met, that motivated me to do that in my community, that led to the phone call I got from a person that had saw my flyer in their mailbox, which was this gentleman right here. And that was 20 something, maybe 20, Jasmine's 24.
Yeah.
So I'm going to think that might have been at least between 23 and 25. I can't remember where I met you in relation to Jasmine being born, but my thinking is I might have met you before Jasmine was born. I can't really remember.
It was. I think Earl, it was 26 years now.
26, that was 26 years ago when I was unexpectedly inspired by the action taken by a lady with a cleaning business that led me to taking the action that led me to meeting this gentleman who is now one of my best friends 26 years later. Mm-hmm. So Joe, I got a lot of that. I'm hoping that the viewing audience did as well. If for nothing else, my man, you are inspiring. You are without question inspiring. I've never seen anybody 26 years later. I've still not yet met somebody that I knew was doing 4 and 5 and 6 and 7 different things that each upon themselves are complicated or difficult, take commitment, and are all time consuming. But somehow that's just how you roll, man. That's your normal standard operating procedure, man. I'm sure if I was to look in your life right now, you probably have about 5 or 6 different things going on. So
It's a few that's going on right now.
I'm sure I don't even have to ask. I know that there's never has not been.
Mm-hmm.
So I know you have one of your latest ventures is a media production company.
Yes.
Is there anything you can share with the viewing audience that would be helpful for them to know about there? I'm just trying. You gave us time. I don't know if maybe nothing we could do to be helpful back to you. I don't know, but if there's something you want to tell people about, you can, or or not. I just want to give you the moment since you took the time to talk with me today. Or I know you have a film coming out and a lot of things going on.
Yeah. So we are working on quite a few film projects at this particular point, and have finished what four of them, 5 of them in the last 2.5 years. So one thing I do want to mention, just to everybody, just listen out on. If you just search Motion Pixels Media, you'll probably see some information. But however, we have a movie that's coming out called Entitled. You'll hear more about that coming out. So what I would just ask everybody, Earl, is just to look out for that, and then support it when you can. It's going to be an awesome movie. It's this psycho thriller that we're putting in about a privileged teenager who sucks up all the moms and dads' money, and there's a plot twist by they just get, I guess, tired of being sick and tired, and they decide that, well, they have to do something with their daughter, and unfortunately it's the wrong thing, but she finds out about it, and all heck breaks loose. So anyway.
Well, I can't wait, man. I can't wait. I knew you would be. I knew you were up to something. You always are.
Right.
So thank you, Joe, so much for taking some time. I even got a lot out of this, and you reminded me of a lot of things that are significant, are very important to myself as well. But I hope the viewing audience took away 1 or 2 or 3 things that they can immediately apply to their life, and if they can do, 1/5 of the things you can do at the level that you do, then this was well worth taking the time to chat about it.
Well, fantastic, Earl. And again, if you don't mind me just kind of leave with one quote here, because you remind me of this individual so much. And as every time that I look at one of your videos and your philosophy and your ideals that you put out, and your care about, helping these individuals reach forward. And again, it was because of one of the videos that you put out around health and wellness and challenging yourself. You get into these modes where you have to say, I have to do something to challenge myself, right? I have to go to the edge and push myself harder. And you put a challenge out there one time, and I said, okay, I think you really kind of gutted me in a little bit. You threw the line out there, and you said, okay, I'm gonna see if he was gonna bite this one, and I did, and it's because of what you've actually done. But this individual here, I'm gonna quote. Let me see. I'm gonna try to think of it. But it reminds me so much of who you are and who you become from, motivating other people and staying in the light of those individuals. It says, once you have mastered time, you'll understand how true that most people overestimate, I think, of how much you can accomplish in a year. So, and I think that was Tony Robbins who actually mentioned that quote. Again, if I bash it, I do apologize, but it's certain things that I keep in my head and just faint in the memory back there that I always kind of live to. And again, I try to live through those principles, and I would say that everybody just do it, to stay true to yourself and just commit to it, and just walk through the path and enjoy it while you do it. So anyway, I appreciate you'll have me on.
All right. I appreciate you. Say hi to the family for me, and let me know the next time you come to Vegas. Look forward to seeing you.
I will do. Thanks, Earl.
Take care.
Bye.